The last type of conversion that we're going to do are drug conversions, and some of you, those of you going into nursing, will find this to be extremely useful. You're going to find it's relatively easy if you just stick with the attitude of unit cancellation, getting to the goal of what is your unit that you want in the final answer. So let's look at how you're just going to use the standard conversion technique to do drug conversions. Any ratio that is given to you can be used as a conversion factor. And so you will see sometimes it'll say this in that. For instance, it might say 250 milligrams in 125 milliliters. That can be used as a conversion factor. It's a ratio. Any ratio given to you can be put into a fraction, and as long as the units cancel properly, everything works out perfectly. So whatever ratio is given to you, use it as a fraction that cancels units. Flip fractions, excuse me, it's trying to do an automatic thing. Flip fractions if you in order to get your unit cancellation. Okay, drug conversions are the same as any other conversion. What you do is you start with the dosage, and that usually puts your units in the right place in numerator versus denominator. The concentrations of medicines or drop factors, rates of delivery, all of that can be used as conversion factors. And then you have to know your conversions from the metric system also, and pound to kilogram conversion. If you ever see per kilogram in a dosage, that means per kilogram of person. So you have to get rid of that in any dosage problem that is for an individual patient with a given mass, and you eliminate that unit by multiplying by the mass of the person. Here's an example. What amount of gallamycin is needed for a 416 kilogram cow if the dosage is a 12.5 milligrams per kilogram? You start with the dosage, and here it's per cow, and so that kilogram of cow. So we need to get rid of that kilogram. How do we do that? We multiply by the mass of the cow, 460 kilogram. Some of you like to write an over 1 so that it's a fraction. You don't have to, but you can. Notice, because this is in the numerator, anything without a denominator is in the numerator. That is in the numerator. This is in the denominator. They cancel out, and you end up with 5,200 milligrams or 5.2 grams, which is the dosage that you would give this 416 kilogram individual. So this is the method for getting rid of the per pound or per kilogram in a dosage. What amount of heparin needs to be given to a 168-pound patient needing 150 units per kilogram? Hint, you've got to remember that 2.21 pounds is equal to a kilogram. So what do? Pause the lecture and do this problem. Well, the first thing that you're going to do is write down the dosage. This is what you're going to be giving the patient, 150 units per kilogram. We need to get rid of that kilogram, so we multiply by the number of kilograms, but we don't have kilograms, we have pounds. So we're just going to insert that conversion, pound to kilogram, into the problem. We multiply by a fraction that takes kilogram to pound, and then we're going to multiply by the number of pounds. Notice kilograms cancel, and it takes us to pound. The 2.21 is with pound, so we must in the fraction make sure 2.21 is with pound. Then what do? Is we multiply by the number of pounds. You see kilograms cancel, pounds cancel, and we end up with the number of units of heparin that we have to give. You might be looking at that word unit and wondering, what is unit? You're supposed to write a unit afterwards. This unit is something that you see in the medical area with anything that is biologically derived, because they're what we call activity units. So every sample of heparin you get has a certain activity multiplied by its mass. And you don't have to worry about it. They test the activity and then they give it a certain unit activity. So you just express it as units. I've been told you're not to use a capital U because some people think that looks like liter, and you're supposed to write out the word unit. So keep that in mind. When we are given problems, the problem will often give you a concentration of the drug. For instance, the label may say 200 milligrams per milliliter, or that 1 milliliter contains 200 milligrams, or some other way that they're expressing concentration. You can change that concentration into a conversion factor, because 200 milligrams and milliliter essentially are the same thing. You can write it as a conversion factor and flip it if you need to for unit cancellation. So here's a problem for you to try. 100 milligrams LASIK for the patient, and the label states 40 milligrams per 5 milliliters. How many milliliters do you give the patient? Pause the lecture and do it. Okay, the first thing you need to do is start with the dosage, 100 milligrams. That's what the patient's going to receive. Next, you look at what unit you want to end up with. You want to end up with milliliter. So what you're going to do is change milligram to milliliter, and lo and behold, in the problem is given a concentration 40 milligrams per milliliter. That's a conversion factor. You can write it as 40 milligrams over 5 milliliters, or 5 milliliters over 40 milligrams. Which one works? Since milligram is in the numerator, you need to have milligram in the denominator. Now we look and see, 40 is with milligram, 5 is with milliliter, and we go and we place those with the respective units. Now milligrams cancel and we end up with milliliter. We do the math and we get 100. Because 5's in the numerator, we put a times in front. Because 40 is in the denominator, we put a divided by in front. So it's 100 times 5 divided by 40, and you should get 12.5 on your calculator. Here's a problem for you. If the patient is prescribed 0.11 grams of Voltaren twice each day, if the tablets can contain 50 milligrams, how many tablets should the patient be given? Go ahead, pause the lecture and do this problem. We start with the dosage. Notice it says twice each day. A nurse does not give the patient what he needs in the entire day. So you're going to figure out what you would give him at one particular time. We start with the dosage of 0.11 grams. And we're going to want to go from gram to tablet. Well, we have to go from gram to milligram, and then from milligram to tablet. So gram to milligram, milligram to tablet. Now we put in the values, the numerical values. A milligram is 0.001, or 10 to the minus 3 grams, and a tablet has 50 milligrams. You multiply through, which is basically 0.11 divided by 0.001 divided by 50, and you get 2. So at one time you would give him 2 tablets. Remember, it's essential to do problems. Do the online homework. You've got to earn your points. Then do the end of chapter problems if you're still having trouble, and come get help at the tutor center or in my office. Bring your work. After doing the online homework system, you ought to do the worksheets, because the problems are mixed up, and they're problems that I've worked out, so they're like problems that would be on the test. Good luck.